Before we get into the video, I just want to say that y'all showed out crazy in the last one. This is the first Dokkan related video I've had to crack even a few hundred views this fast, not to mention 1,000. Let's get it. Man, it never ends with Dokkan Battle tier list talk, huh? Join the club if you haven't already. We're talking about whether the Part 1 LRs are already outdated for Global, now that the Tanabata Part 2 is coming to JP. As of Scriptness intro, Global just got its Part 2 start, and I'm even grinding the last of the missions while recording this actually. And as it goes with Dokkan Twitter, we have some takes to say a lot about Dokkan Battle's tier list culture and why it hasn't developed with the pace of the game. But let's get a disclaimer in. We know that JP is getting its next 2 fights as of recording this video. What this means is anything shown here is subject to change drastically. For all we know, the fight could be so long that Broly's domain comes out every single time, and he looks insane. We truly can only speculate. So for the take of grounding us and without throwing any shade or anything, we're just going to take a look at Truth's tier list for the recent LRs, and we're just going to take it at face value and not really question it. We got Beast, of course, Cell, of course, Vegeta, UI Goku again, the Easy A, Gogeta, Easy A, and finally Anniversary LR Broly. And the issue with this list removed from its context, which is Truth speaking over it, Truth giving his reasons, Truth talking about the support they might give, the defensive capabilities, the team protecting capabilities, is that people see this list and it gives them nothing. And herein lies the first problem. Most, if not all of these characters do a ton of damage. I would say that the only character who is primarily defensive, doesn't really do much damage no matter what you do for him, is Bootanks. Because of this, you could say that Bootanks is fulfilling a completely defensive role on the team. His role is to heal you, soak some damage, hopefully dodge supers, and stack alongside his other extreme unit relatives in the first or second slot. And it's like, okay, well, duh. All of that context is necessary. The tier list is simply an accompanying piece to the talking points that Truth has. Sure. I don't really want to keep comparing the strengths of something like Honkai Star Rail to Dokkan, because if I'm honest, I actually like Dokkan more. I've just been playing Honkai while Dokkan is in a dead period, so I have a lot of thoughts on the game. This setup here, though, is something that was used in Epic 7 as well. Any sort of team building game where you need to grade characters or classes of characters on a scale that fits their niche. The Dokkan community is currently grading characters as if they're fighting game characters. I come from the fighting game community, and in those games you will just put a character on a tier list and you don't really need to explain the role they fulfill, or that they're a zoner, or that they're a grappler, or that they're defensive, or that they're offensive. You just know that they're there because they probably have a good matchup spread. They do things that are inherently very powerful, so it is easy to grade them against the characters adjacent from them. But even the fighting game community currently has an issue with tier lists. This is a tier list from a game called Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2, the sort of last age of this title. It comes from an age of fighting games where the power level was a lot more wonky. Some characters were just bad, some characters were just the best, and you could play around those skill sets, but if you were playing characters who were worse, they were just worse. Let's think of this tier list as describing Dokkan in 2023. Dokkan in 2023 had so many flop releases, so many dead teams, so many spikes in power and absolute valleys that made you wonder what the team at Akatsuki was really doing. Even the Easy A's were fumbles. It felt like there were just no good characters coming out. In this way, the top 3 characters being something like Future Gohan, Bulma, and the Blue Duo make a lot of sense here. They're just so much stronger than the characters that can't really stand up to the Fusion Zamasu meta of the time, where they just get one shot, just obliterated for not being strong enough turn 1. Something like this is closer to what Dokkan actually operates within. Characters that are so obtusely powerful and well-rounded that there really isn't even a need to talk about B tiers, C tiers, D tiers. If you are on a list at this point, you are probably competent enough to stand on a team and even kick other characters off that team. And much like with Dokkan in 2024, fighting games in 2024 are getting better and better at consolidating power, and it's why oftentimes you'll see people talk about fighting game tier lists like for Street Fighter 6s as not being the best 3 characters, but feeling like this random mix of like the best 11 characters, which, you know, for a much smaller cast of characters than Dokkan Battle, than a gacha game, is really unique. Because Dokkan 1 doesn't have a great identity as far as ranking these characters, we have no idea how we're ranking these characters? Are we ranking them against all the fights generally? Are some fights more important than others? I mean, obviously Cellmax and the Evo Ken Vegeta and whatever comes out tonight are more powerful than, you know, legendary Frieza event, but how much more powerful? Does it matter the same amount? Less? Because Dokkan isn't a game where its content is as strictly reliant on something stable like a fighting game, it's so difficult to just rate characters generally. Vector here points out that we're going through the same cycle as last year where people are calling, you know, pulling on the current anniversary units a bad idea, but them moving off of the top 10, how much does it mean really? And, you know, again, shout out to Truth because I'm using his tier list as a reference point here. He is talking about the hubbub that's been made on Twitter saying that Broly and Gogeta aren't good enough and are falling off the top 10. Are they falling off the top 10 too fast, etc., etc.? These are specific times and specific levels of power creep, but like the list has never been closer, so the context of the list matters so much. There seems to be a campaign started strictly around them falling off the top 10 as if that really matters. I feel like all lists should either acknowledge that the top 15 function more like a top 10 than it ever has, or like other team building games in its space, we need to start consolidating these terms for characters who are just defensive, just damage blitzers, just, you know, whatever the fuck. It's gotten to the point where how do you tell a list that Gogeta will probably outage most characters that are currently above him due to the wealth of mechanics that he has on his kit? Or maybe he won't. Maybe the fights will never get longer. Maybe they'll only get shorter. Maybe, you know, there's just so many variables that don't account for what he brings, which is the strongest rainbow orb changing in the game. I threw something together. I didn't organize it. I grabbed them as I saw them. Don't put too much stock in the placement or ordering or what have you. Mostly this is just a concept to show what I'm talking about. Things like account defining units, Beast Gohan, Cellmax, these will decide the way in which you build teams going forward. You will build around their strong mechanics. Same with the EZA anniversary units, which most accounts have. They're on the Beast Gohan banner, which is such a packed utility banner, just one of the most valuable you can pull on. Things like the new Tech UI Goku has that insane, not only leader skill, but EZA compliments and domain that we don't even know what the full power of it will be. We don't know what these new fights are going to look like. Buhan, who in a lot of scenarios you probably wouldn't see here because he doesn't do anything as obtusely powerful as the units above him. That said, if you are doing an extreme mission, if you are building an extreme team, you will almost always see him brought. He's just so flexible for what he does. The same is also just easily said about Gogeta and maybe even to a lesser extent Broly, but we don't really know what the future fights look like for Broly. He's still powerful in slot 2. He still has characters that can stand in front of him. He might be in a wonky spot with his Super Bosses team, but if you have Broly, you're probably bringing Broly. This isn't the private server. You're pulling on anniversary banners. You don't have a perfect account. You can see that once you start contextualizing units in this way, how this list really just fills up with so many characters rather than being this stagnant top 10. And I'm not even counting URs in this list. It is this flexible revolving door that highlights what these characters actually do in their space rather than just in a vacuum, rather than just as words on a screen. But yeah, that's probably all I wanted to touch on today. I've just been seeing this discourse crop up on Twitter, obviously, and it's been so weird, so wonky. I feel like everyone's losing their minds over characters being kicked off of a top 10 instead of enjoying the fact that this is even possible. I have an incomplete Majin team that I run with the Ultimate Gohan from the Majin celebration and the EZA Gohan, and I clear every event that's coming out on Global right now, even the one where it's like a type team, because the team is just so face roll. You just run the rotations, you know, you have to flex around what's happening. And these are all item lists. They're all itemless runs, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that, and we're going to see a lot more of the fights getting harder. But don't be afraid. They're continuing to release good characters, and I don't really think it's that much of a mistake to pull on anything. I think in this age of Dokkan, where almost every new character is fighting for top 3 or pushing other characters off the list, guess what? They're probably just good for your account. If you made it this far, I appreciate you so much, man. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about like the tier list debacle that's going on, man. This shit crazy, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I can't believe people are this bent out of shape of characters getting pushed off a top 10 as if it doesn't mean that the characters this year haven't just been so fun to use. With all that said though, I've been Lone. Loners, man. Peace.